had taken him from working-class Birmingham to the pinnacle of a Conservative government. 37 and balding on top, Timothy had become a recognisable public figure, thanks to the lustrous beard he wore, which would not have looked out of place on a 19th-century Russian novelist. In Tory circles, Timmy was most usually compared to the third Marquess of Salisbury, the last Tory Prime Minister to sit in the House of Lords. When Hill and Timothy emerged from the side room and made their way to the safe space again, others, anxious now, stood rooted to the spot. The two of them were the only people moving, one recalled. A Conservative special adviser, a SPAD to all those in Westminster, turned to Liz Sanderson, one of May's Downing Street staff, and asked what sort of percentage lead the Tories would need in the exit poll to have a good night. "I don't know what good is supposed to look like," the adviser said. As Big Ben struck 10, the BBC's David Dimbleby announced that Britain was on course for a hung parliament. The Conservatives were set to lose seats. It dropped on the screen and I thought, well, it ain't fucking that. I burst into laughter because that is my reaction to anything totally catastrophic. No one else was laughing. The whole place was like someone had been murdered, another SPAD recalled. There was a paralysing quiet. Panic looked like the most wonderfully British panic, which was total fucking silence, a Downing Street official said. The air just went from the room. It was like a vacuum. Hill and Timothy spoke to Theresa May by phone. The Prime Minister was at home in her Maidenhead constituency. They agreed to await the results. Inside, May prepared for the worst. She had already had a little cry. After a 7-week campaign, which was supposed to be a victory lap, May had taken her party backwards. Over the next 8 hours, her expected majority of 60 or more dissolved into a net loss of 13 seats. Conservative staff fell into a deep depression. The campaign had not been enjoyable, but the prospect of victory had kept them going. Now that was gone. "I felt like Andy Dufresne in The Shawshank Redemption," one SPAD said. "I'd crawled through a mile of shit, and there was supposed to be a boat or money or Morgan Freeman coming to hug me at the end. Instead, it was just a pile of poo, and I was stuck in a pond with the rain pouring down on me." The political implications were as acute as the personal. A Prime Minister who had seemed impregnably strong was suddenly dangerously weak and fighting for her career. An election called to strengthen Britain's hand in negotiations on the country's exit from the European Union, Brexit, as it was now known to everyone, had left the UK disempowered at a critical moment in her history. May's two closest aides, who had been as dominant a duopoly as 10 Downing Street has ever seen, saw their power evaporate. Timothy and Hill had helped to create the public being of Theresa May. They were her greatest cheerleaders and defenders. Now they were to be sacrificial lambs for the disaster that was unfolding, their best service to throw themselves to the wolves so that she might escape their jaws. It had all been very different on results night a year earlier. Nick Timothy was in a remote Sicilian mountaintop village with his then fiancée, Nike Trost, on the night of the EU referendum. He was a convinced Brexiteer, but did not think Leave would win. Halfway through the night, his phone began beeping with messages saying, "Are you watching?" Timothy took out his laptop and began live streaming Sky News as the biggest electoral earthquake in modern political history unfolded. His partner, a German citizen, realised what was happening and groaned, "Oh my God." By dawn it was clear that after 44 years, Britain had voted to leave the European Union by a margin of 52% to 48%. Over his hotel breakfast, Timothy watched David Cameron resign as Prime Minister.